Welcome to the Smartflow podcast presented by Jotform, where we feature top leaders sharing their smart solutions in business and life.
Hi, Chad Franzen here. I am one of the hosts of the Smartflow podcast, where we feature top leaders in healthcare. The Smartflow podcast is presented by Jotform Enterprise, which is a HIPAA-friendly no-code platform that empowers healthcare organizations worldwide through custom forms, e-signatures, and more. Their solutions enhance patient and provider experiences by streamlining intakes and automating administrative tasks, all in a secure environment. A great example of this is Body Brave. They consolidated 5 separate platforms and replaced them with Jotform Enterprise. They obviously save money, but also saved 120 hours of staff time in the first 6 months with the Jotform data collection and reporting tools. Popular use cases for healthcare organizations include digitizing forms, replacing paper-based processes, collecting e-signatures, and much more, so they can ultimately focus on delivering exceptional care. It's also very easy to implement. I've even used Jotform myself, and it's really simple, even for someone not technically minded. Learn more by going to jotform.com/enterprise. My guest today is Maxwell Pollock, an enterprising B2B business leader and digital marketing specialist with over 7 years of experience. He has a proven track record in launching successful campaigns, producing compelling content, and developing effective business systems, driving explosive growth and brand authority for companies in AI, digital health, and beyond. With a track record of skyrocketing lead conversions, like helping one company grow leads by 1,000% in just 6 months, Maxwell is a content and revenue strategist who knows how to turn smart storytelling into serious results. His expertise spans content marketing, public relations, branding, and opinion research, making him a versatile professional in the marketing landscape. Hey, Maxwell, it's great to talk to you today. How are you?
I'm doing a lot better after that introduction. Thanks so much. We should end the episode right now. End it on a high note.
Perfect. Yeah, no, you sound great. It's great to talk to you. Hey, tell me how you kind of got into digital marketing and what inspired you to specialize in it.
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually started in sales, and that sometimes raises a few eyebrows in the marketing world, but I used to direct a small tea importing business. And there, as the director, I both managed sales, but I also basically did all of the marketing for the company. And after about a 2-year stint as director at that company, I really realized sales, although I was okay at it, I didn't really love it. I loved the marketing side of things and the public relations side of things, drafting press releases, writing blogs, speaking with reporters, managing the social media, drafting more strategic plans behind the sales to be able to drive revenue. And so I left that world behind without a plan, without a parachute. And I thought, well, I studied some public relations and a continuing education program at New York University. Maybe I'll do PR. Maybe I'll do PR and marketing, a blend of the two. And I have some family members who've been in marketing before, so I did have a little bit of tangential knowledge of the field. And so I just went in head first and started freelancing. Started out just taking, really small gigs, writing a press release or two, then sort of built a client base, which was, I was very lucky. I was also sort of lucky to hit the ground running during the pandemic in a sense, because remote work exploded. So a lot of companies were looking for remote freelancers. And then, I just settled into healthcare sort of naturally. And the reason I settled into healthcare, I think, is because healthcare has this very unique position among other industries where there's a sense of altruism in healthcare, of helping people and treating disease. I mean, who can disagree with treating an illness, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, it's sort of a vexed industry because they have to make money. And they have to tell people about their products. They have to tell people about the care quality that they deliver to patients, right? In order to stay alive and to keep doing all these altruistic, wonderful things. So that's a little bit about me and sort of how I got into it. But I actually have a background in sales and then shifted to marketing.
What was it about sales that you liked, and what was it about sales that you did not like?
I loved the idea of persuading, and this was B2B sales, right? So I was selling, tea into cafes and other, tea purveyors. So we were importing it directly and then selling it. I like I sort of got a thrill from persuading a company to drop whoever they were buying from and go with us. And again, that was in some ways sort of early marketing training of, well, what messaging is going to work right with this specific target audience member. I also liked asking. I'm a curious person, so I liked asking questions, and I really just enjoyed the back and forth of asking a question, getting an answer, and having to think very quickly with what to do with that answer. Right. What did I not like about sales? I didn't like the fact that it is a very short term muscle in a sense. I mean, you're on the phone with somebody, you're getting the sale, and then you pass it off, right? I mean, after that sale's done, you might do some account management, or if you have an account management team, they do it. But really, you're there to just persuade them, and then it's lather, rinse, repeat with the next customer. That gets kind of boring if you're doing it day after day after day after day. So balancing that out with also being a director, sort of a recipe for a kidney transplant. So that's another thing that had to do with it, right? I was pretty burned out in my early 30s. And that's that's pretty early age to experience burnout. So I knew I had to switch careers also for that reason. Not that marketing's any less stressful.
We'll get into marketing in just 1 second. One more question about sales. How did you how do you overcome, or how did you advise people to overcome that initial, I'm here to sell you something part of the conversation?
Don't make it about you. Don't make it about your product. There's the famous line from Wolf of Wall Street, sell me this pen. And you can't sell that pen without asking a question first. So when you call, especially cold calling, I mean, they have no idea who you are, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to really get curious quite quickly, because you want to learn about them, and you want to learn where the gap is. Okay, where's the opportunity here? And so that's really the secret sauce is, be curious first about the person, be curious about the human being on the other end. Then you can get into, this is how my product is going to help you.
Okay, very nice. So your sales experience, you were kind of burned out on that, and then you transitioned to marketing. What do you take from sales that you now apply to marketing successfully?
This is a really important question, because one of my gripes with most marketers is, and I have a lot of friends who are in this boat, so it's not really it's not something I hold too close to my heart, but it is something that I think can be improved among many marketers, is a full understanding of the sales life cycle. So having that personalized experience where I had to actually sell to a customer, I knew exactly as a salesperson the materials that I needed to be able to successfully carry out that sale. I knew what those materials were pre-call, mid-call, and post-call. And so I was also drafting those materials as the director, right? And so I knew, okay, there are a lot of different touch points that a customer goes through before they become a customer. And I think a lot of marketers could even benefit, I think, from some sales experience to that extent, because often if you just have an MBA in marketing, that's great. But if you have an MBA in marketing and then you go right into the marketing world and have no sales experience, you're sort of operating in a vacuum, where you think, okay, yeah, we can just, create an ad, put it out, get a lead for our sales team, and wipe our hands on to the next one. And that's not really how it works.
So as I mentioned, you are able to turn smart storytelling into results, content marketing. What kind of strategies do you employ when you develop a content marketing plan for B2B clients?
Yeah, there's a lot to it. The principal one is to understand challenges. So to be a successful content marketer, or a marketer in general, you have to almost have a mini degree in psychology, because you have to understand where are people feeling pain right now? How can I amplify that pain? And then basically tell them how to solve that pain point, right? Help them out, shine that light at the end of the tunnel. So it always starts with, well, how do I figure out what the customer is going through right now? Got to talk to sales, got to talk to people, right? ChatGPT, I saw a great quote the other day on LinkedIn. ChatGPT reads the internet, it doesn't read the room, right? So you still have to go shake some hands. You might have to, I like actually talking to either an ex-customer or sitting in on an exit interview from a customer, because then you get to learn some of those challenges and they're really blunt about them, right?
Woo.
So they don't sugarcoat anything in an exit interview. So, yeah, I think number one, you have to learn where the challenges are so you can learn where the opportunities are. And that's got to inform the content. The second thing that's really important is understanding what optimized content is. So, you can speak to those pain points and tell people how to solve them. But if nobody's looking at it, then you're not really doing much for your sales team. You're not really doing much for the revenue of your company. So, that's where optimization comes in. And I don't know if you've heard the term before, Chad, SEO. So it's search engine optimization. Creating that SEO content that's going to drive search is a really important aspect. It's not everything, but it is an important aspect of crafting effective content. And now there's also LMO, which is language model optimization. People are going to GPT search to find solutions and products. So even in healthcare. So I just saw, I think, the first conversion from one of my LMO pieces of content. And so, basically knowing what format you have to take and knowing what goes into formatting those pieces effectively so that they reach the right audience. And then the third really big one is distribution. So, nowadays we have, AI snippets at the top of Google. I remember the days when they didn't have that, but now you have an AI snippet. So what that does essentially is it prioritizes sponsored content. There's a very monetary reason that Google chose to include an AI snippet above organic content. And that's because you'll look at the sponsored stuff first. It's above the fold, right? And it really pushes that organic content down further. Sometimes Google will link out to content in the AI snippet, but a lot of people don't click on that. They just believe Google. So, that's where distribution becomes important. So PPC campaigns, boosted posts, sponsored posts, not just on social, but also partnering with organizations and associations to advertise your product or advertise your piece of content.
Yeah, most users or most Google searchers, I mean, I see like that sponsored stuff, and often I'll scroll past it and get down to the stuff that's probably already up there anyway. But just for the sake of not being manipulated or whatever, I'll scroll past it. You think most users do that, or most users just see whatever is on top and go for it?
Most users do that in B2B healthcare. If you're looking for, let's say, a new software, or if you're just investigating whatever is the latest and greatest, I think you're more likely to click on the sponsored content at the top because you're like, oh, this is a company I haven't heard of before, right? Let me see what their product looks like. So it's more about, it depends on the audience. Me personally, rarely ever do I click on sponsored stuff, but I'm also not the buyer that I target.
Yeah. So you want the content has to be SEO friendly, LMO friendly. It has to be distributed effectively, and it has to be compelling. What elements go into compelling content?
Well, so that first one, which is understanding challenges, right? Understanding the friction point. You can't have a fire without a spark, right? So you need to understand the friction that's going on in your industry. What are the and that might be different. Let's take medical practices. The challenges that an office manager faces are going to be different than the challenges that a biller faces, right? They're going to be different than the challenges of the clinician or the physician of the practice. It's going to be different than the practice owner if they're different from let's say if the practice owner is different from the physician, right? So there are going to be different touch points as well with those challenges that you need to create content for. Another thing that goes into compelling content is understanding usability. I think a lot of content writers, I should say, they tend to ignore UX, so user experience, when they're crafting content. So I'll give you an example. If you have a blog, right, a blog post that's just run-on sentences and paragraphs and just text, just a sea of text, you're probably not going to get a great read-through rate on that because people get fatigued. They get really tired of just reading black and white. So throw in a video in there, right? Break up the text a little bit with a graph, with a free infographic. So I think just to wrap that up, another piece of crafting compelling content is understanding how people are going to engage with your content.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that. So, what about branding for maybe a company, maybe a medical healthcare practice? How important is like a cohesive identity, even in medical, for a medical practice?
So important. It is so important. Brand marketing is another element that kind of sometimes falls under content marketing, which is my theory is almost that content marketing is the new general marketing in some ways. But that's a discussion probably for another time. But I think most people, if we're talking about medical practices, their target audience is a patient. There's a lot of evidence pointing to that even aging populations are becoming more aware of branding consistencies and more visually literate as they use digital devices longer. And definitely millennials and Gen X or Gen Z rather, and Gen X are pretty visually literate. So if you have inconsistent branding across your social media, if you have inconsistent branding in your advertisements using all sorts of different colors and different fonts, it doesn't look very professional. And it's interesting you bring up medical practices because most of them are not really entrepreneurial. A lot of physicians, they don't get into the practice of medicine to do that. They truly don't. They get into the practice of medicine to treat people and help people. And they don't really know how to run a business more often than not. So branding is super, super important. If there are any medical practice owners who end up listening to this randomly, then you'll need to know that your brand will be one of the first things your patients really see when they go to look at different providers online.
You're also a public relations expert. What role does public relations play in maybe a proactive marketing strategy?
Huge role. PR and marketing, to me, are really intertwined. Again, it goes to that same point that I made before, which is you can make all these insights, you can create all this brand equity, but if there's no one to see it, no one around to see it, did it really happen? Right. So PR is really important because it's a soft sell of your brand. And I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm Dell Computers. And let's say I want to discuss a new, software that or new hardware rather, a new computer that I put together. And, rather than saying buy Dell's new computer, I might instead write up a story or write up an op-ed that talks about a person who's hard of sight, and they use Dell's new computer to be able to operate and maintain a full-time job using a new Braille function, right? I didn't make it about Dell. I didn't make the subject about Dell. I made it about the individual whose life was so empowered by this new Dell product. And if you can convince reporters and you can convince publications to carry your news, I mean, that's gold. That's a champagne moment in PR. But I've seen it. I mean, it's one of the hardest things to measure. I don't think you can measure it personally. I don't think you can measure. Impressions don't really tell you anything, right, on an article. But I've seen definite increases in sales volume and inbound, contact requests from leads after major PR campaigns.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you measure the success of a content marketing campaign. I'm guessing impressions are not a huge metric then, based on what you just said.
Look, measurement and attribution, it's sort of the bane of a marketer. And I'll tell you why. Someone could read your blog on an airplane, spill coffee on their computer, have to close their computer up, do something else, have a conversation with their coworker a week later. Light bulb goes off. Oh, yeah, I just read an article about this. Show the coworker later, on a different IP address or different whatever if they're a remote worker. And then they go and download your case study, but you never tie the two together. It's very difficult to do customer mapping, especially in the content world, especially even more so, I would say, in the PR world, because it's just out there for the public to view. But truly, 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 the only metric that matters at the end of the day is momentum. If your sales team is flush with leads, if you're experiencing higher revenue than you had the previous quarter, if your cost per customer acquisition is down, you're doing something right at the beginning of the pipeline to create that output at the end of the pipeline.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's good insight. How important is operations for a medical practice when it comes to marketing or PR?
Oh, wow. At the medical practice level, honestly, the best thing you can do is probably outsource it. It's going to be way more expensive to bring in marketers into your medical practice than to just outsource it to another, like an agency or an expert service in marketing. I think it's still important to have your operations in place, and I'll tell you why. And I've seen this before because I've worked in the agency environment. You'll get medical practices that say, great, run my PPC campaign or run my social media ads for me. And you go, okay, great. Send me over some pictures, some videos. We need some collateral to be able to unpack and give people a front row seat of what your practice looks like day in and day out. We don't have any of that. Just use whatever we have on YouTube. Just use whatever, right? So they don't really have a system in place yet, but they want the end result of marketing because they know marketing is tied to revenue, right? And they know, especially now with Google reviews and, there's so many different ways to promote your brand online that you'd almost be stupid not to really look into a marketing service or look into hiring a marketing professional. Though again, a service is a much better idea for a medical practice. So where was I going with that? Yeah. So the operations are, we need some internal, media production. We need to, and that sounds fancy, but it's just, hey, take your smartphone and, film just around the office, or film, let's do a quick interview with the chief physician at the medical practice. Right. And, ask them about their journey, how they got into, medicine, what advancements or treatments are best for their patients, what brings them joy about their job, and why should you choose their practice over another one. Right. They can do that. They can create that media on a cadence, but they need a system in place to do that. So I'd say that's the most important part for medical practices to focus on. The second one would be patient reviews. Patient reviews, in my opinion, it's reputation management, but it still sort of falls under the purview of marketing. They need a system in place to gather positive patient reviews. And that includes, putting in the right tech stack to ensure that you have a convenient channel for patients to just click a button and leave a great review.
As I mentioned when I introduced you, you have a track record of lead conversions. You helped one company grow leads by 1,000% in 6 months. Tell me a little bit about that and kind of what went into that process.
Well, I can't put the client on blast, but yeah, I can. I can definitely speak a little bit to this. There are three elements that go into a successful content marketing program. The first one, the very first one, and this kind of relates back to your medical practice question, is to put the right systems in place to create content at a high velocity and at high quality. So that includes adopting the right technology to project manage your content on a continuous basis, implementing deadlines, ensuring you're confronting the ongoing issue in most content marketing departments, which is a review cycle, right? Making sure you have a seamless review cycle so you can distribute content quite quickly. Making sure you have an editorial style guide in place if you have multiple content creators on your team, so everybody knows the rules of the road for crafting high quality content, and it makes the editing process much smoother. right? So having those systems in place is number one. That's going to lay the foundation for creating those leads because everybody's on the same page. Number two is you need to understand what your target audience is going through, what their challenges are, and speak to those challenges quite plainly in your distribution. So if I have a case study that's about, let's say it's about, a dermatologist, and somehow the solution that we're selling increase the claim denials of that dermatologist by 100%. That's a big deal, right? Like that's going to put more money in their pockets. So putting that number loud and proud, like, hey, do you want to know how to reduce your claim denials by 100%? Read this case study. Keeping it very simple and straight to the point, I think is really, really important. So again, not to repeat myself, but understanding those challenges and then having a repository, right? Going back to the system that's in place, having a repository for that. And then the third thing is having feedback loops. So you need to have people look at sales and marketing as separate. They're really kind of two arms of the same body, and that body is revenue. So continuously talking with sales, having those meetings set up with sales where you're constantly getting feedback from them, from potential prospects or from customers, and then pivoting your messaging quite quickly to be able to message effectively and then foil competitors. And then, picking the right distribution channels. For instance, LinkedIn used to be amazing for advertising. Lately, it's a noise machine. And there are a lot of geopolitical reasons for that we won't get into, right? A lot of people looking for work right now. So that's a big part of it. If your brand isn't putting out hiring updates, you're probably not going to get much engagement or many clicks. But Facebook, I actually gave up on Facebook at one point. Now I'm going back to Facebook because we're seeing a lot of conversions there.
Really? What do you think that is?
It's a really good question. I think, believe it or not, I used to think, people are just sharing memes on Facebook. People aren't. Believe it or not, I think a lot of even professionals are on Facebook on the weekends. I see like conversions go up, right? Like they kind of use it to connect with family. But if you can put an ad in there that's relevant to their day to day, people are just like always in work mode now. They're always thinking about their job, especially if they're a practice owner or they're a physician or something along those lines. They're always on call for their patients, right? If you can make their lives easier and catch them at the right time, that right time could be a Saturday morning. So yeah, I think that's why. I think most people on LinkedIn, there are just so many people looking for work right now that it drowns out a lot of any sort of attempts by a brand to be able to promote themselves or to even offer free content. And I think Meta is a little bit different because you don't have that noise happening. You have other noise, but you don't have that specific noise.
Is it important to tailor the content to the platform? I mean, obviously YouTube, you'll post videos, but between, let's say you have written content that could be posted on Facebook and LinkedIn. Can you post the same thing on both platforms?
Short answer, no. Long answer, there's some nuance to it. So you could definitely repurpose content. So let's say I have a LinkedIn post. LinkedIn post, I generally, if it's an organic post, not just not an ad or like a boosted post, I usually create a much longer LinkedIn post to entice people to engage. Because the longer you're reading a post on LinkedIn, the more likely you are there's some data to back this up, the more likely you are to click, a like or a love and leave a comment. So because you're invested, you're like, well, I'm halfway down, read the whole thing. And then if something resonates with them, they're like, you know what? I'm gonna leave that a like. That was cool. Facebook, not so much. People want a lot more digestible content. It's just the nature of the platform. You have, a wider net on Facebook. So usually very quick and snappy. Same thing with X. X even has a character limit. So you're actually quite restricted, content wise. Video tends to play well across all platforms. So video is not restricted to YouTube or TikTok. It performs pretty well on Facebook. pretty well on Instagram, of course, which is also Meta. And it's performing well on Blue Sky as well.
Okay, very interesting. Hey, I have one more question for you, but first tell me how people can find out more about your services and what you have to offer.
Yeah. You can visit my website. It's maxwellcpollock.com. That's Maxwell, like my first name, the letter C, then my last name, Pollock.com. And there you can read a little bit about me. If you have any questions for me or just want to chat about content, I love making friends. So we can talk.
Okay, very nice. Hey, you mentioned the importance of feedback loops. What if the feedback is negative? How do you handle that?
When people get curious. I think angry feedback or negative feedback or whatever it might be, sad feedback, whatever it is, it's a chance for you to learn. And I think the impulse is to get defensive by most people. It's, oh, well, my content can't be bad, right? Or like my marketing approach can't be bad. It's not a bad or good thing, right? Like once you kind of get over that, oh, that means they think it's bad. Once you get past that, and I think it takes time and experience to get past that, but it barely becomes an impulse. And so what that turns into, it flips a switch in your brain where you go, oh, that's interesting. And I've learned this really important phrase, which is I say, that's interesting. Say more about that. Right? Keep talking to me about it. Let's talk. Let's talk about that. Now there's some things that are just obvious and it clicks with me and I go, yeah, you know what? You're right. And, to put it lightly, content marketing is about compromise, because everybody has an opinion. Right. But if you have data and you show me it and you go, hey, it's not working because of X, Y, and Z. And then sometimes even if you don't have data, if it's, qualitative information of, hey, I was just on a sales call. This didn't really resonate with me that much. Great. Thanks so much for telling me. Say more about that. And let's pivot. Let's change.
Okay. Great stuff. Hey, Maxwell, it's been great to talk to you today. Thank you so much for all of your time and your insights. Really appreciate it.
You too, Chad. Thanks so much.
So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Smartflow podcast. We'll see you again next time. Be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and go to jotform.com/enterprise to learn more.